Hello and welcome everybody to another GRL podcast. With me tonight, Koyi, Fanta, and Panda again. And this podcast will be brought to you by Rogue Energy. So don't forget to use our code Round Effect RL to get 10% off. And yeah, it's been another week of GRL racing. This week we obviously were at Hungary at the Hungaroring for a custom weather round. The first custom weather round GRL has ever hosted. And as you can see on the screen, it certainly was a mystery weather madness. Um, Many different weather conditions across all the divisions. I think we can straight head into the Division 1 race where on pole, it was Blade with 1:13.298 in a wet to dry qualifying session, um, where he got pulled by over 3 tenths actually from Beati Tonio. Ayati Jordan finishes second in the race behind Blade in the Aston Martin, but almost 26 seconds off the Japanese driver. Beati Tonio then in third for the Kick Sauber team with Gauzy in fourth for McLaren. In P5, then we've got Boosted, who was the leading runner on a two-stop strategy. Um, Unlike some other drivers, he used both the wet and the intermediate to then go on the hard compound tire. Nado in the second Williams finishes P6 ahead of Rob Kelly in seventh. RM Beeford in 8th, who ran out of fuel across the line and just about pipped myself in P9 Atom. In P10 then we've got the race winner from round 1 in Tecubi and Reese in 11th as the leading Alpine. In P12 we've got Dylan Baxter in the second Ferrari. He also ran out of fuel, so both Ferraris not only pulling off a classic Ferrari strategy, but also losing out compared to last week. In 13th place, then we've got ART Exotic Plates. Was the first one with a free stopper. He did a good old intermediate, hard, medium, soft strategy. So he tried out all the slick tires, which caused him to be almost 2 minutes off Blade in the end. Then in the end, we had two more lapped cars finishing the race, which were Cont in 14th, who picked up the fastest lap, and Beatty Wilsey in 15th. Looking at the Drivers' Championship now, Blade leads the way with 47 points, so he passes Takubi. The Red Bull driver then in second with 31 points. He's 16 points off the Williams driver. Then we've got ART Jordan and Boosted RB sharing third place, both with 21 points, just 1 point ahead of Gauzy. In P6, we've got Aaron Beeford in the Ferrari with 19 points, ahead of Exotic Planes, Tony Wright, and myself, Atom. All of those three drivers on 16 points. And Adston rounds on the top 10 in the drivers' standings with 13 points. Multiple further drivers scoring points. And at the bottom of the driver standings, we've got Reese, actually, who's got -1 point due to some post-race penalties to his name. In the team standings, Williams puts themselves up to first place with 57 points, while Red Bull are second, 5 points behind them. Aston Martin, then, due to Jordan's podium, improve up to third with 43 points. Ferrari in fourth remain with 27, 1 point ahead of McLaren. Sauber then in P6 with 18 points, 1 point ahead of Alpine. Mercedes in P8 with 11 points. In P9, I've got Haas with 6, and in P10, the Racing Bulls with only 2. So they'll certainly have to make up some ground. So very, very dominant race indeed from Blade after just about missing out to the victory at Kota by 1 millisecond. And behind him, it's been very close. I mean, for example, Tony has been beaten to the line by Jordan just about due to running out of fuel as well. So all the cars with Ferrari engines have certainly messed something up this weekend. But 26 seconds is, due to my knowledge, the biggest gap between first and second GRL race winner has ever had in Division 1. Until this point, it was Radius back in Season 2 with a 25.000 second gap to P2 back in Miami. That was so Blade already showing off why he really wants to challenge for that title, but obviously he has to build a gap as he will miss a couple of rounds later on in the season. While TechUP has certainly not delivered this week in the wet conditions, someone indeed has, and that was his teammate Boosted, who finishes fourth and now is only 10 points behind his teammate, level pegging with Jordan. So that will, I think, be very, very interesting indeed. But yeah, that is Division 1. Let's have a look at the championship that is looking quite a bit closer, which is Division 2. So let's have a look how that race panned out. This race was covered by Rage Quit this week on Twitch, and it for quite some time looked like Fizzle, or in-game called Piotr Dabek, in the McLaren was going to pick up pole position, but with 6 minutes to go, he sadly retired from the session due to a crash. So it gave Nebrestrom the chance to pick up pole position with a 1:14.027. Nebrestrom then also went on to win the race from ART Ronan in the Mercedes. So it was Red Bull versus Mercedes at Hungary. We remember that back from from real life F1 in, I believe, 2020, where Hamilton beat Verstappen. Though this time it was the Red Bull winning out. Gaitenkas then finished in third place, already more than 10 seconds off the leader. AMS Atomic, he had a roller coaster race as well. He finishes in fourth, despite having a drive-through penalty at one stage. So with his four-stop strategy, he certainly lucked out a little bit with the safety cars in this race. In P5, we've got AMS Partik. He completed the free stopper, the winner from the US Grand Prix. While Josh finishes in P6. In P7, we've got the podium finisher from Kota, Epic OJ in the V-Carb. He's only completed a one-stop with a hard to intermediate. Raven Western in P8 after a little collision with Rexy, but didn't happen too much. With Parker ninth in the leading Ferrari and Piotr Dabek, as mentioned, in P10. A driver that was fighting for the lead for quite some time was Thomas, who finished in P11, but he stayed out on his mediums for way too long, so he lost quite some time there. Then we've got Lorne and Adrian Nolan also finishing the races, with retirements for FRRXE, Cintium, Scornsey, BRT Knight, ARS Spatsy, and Van Anyu. Looking at the Drivers' Championship now, it is indeed very, very close. The two Saubers of Partig and Gaitenkas shared the first position with 36 points, but only 1 point behind them now. We've got Nebrestrom. So it's indeed very, very close, and the two Saubers have got now someone for company to battle it out for the next rounds, but it obviously is all still very, very close. In fourth position, we've got Epic OJ, so it was a solid start to the season for him, despite starting off as reserve and now picking up a full-time seat. So we'll have to see how he can do. After missing the first race, he came back with a strong second place finish. Ayati Ronan, the Irishman, now in P5 of the championship with 20 points, but obviously he'll have to prove himself once again next week and even further. Parker then in P6, 18 points to his name, as we mentioned last week. He didn't look forward to this game just based on the handling, but he certainly has had a good first two races. Raven West then in P7, he's on 16 points, 1 point ahead of White Josh, who is also only 1 point ahead of Finman. Atomic then rounds out the top 10 with 13 points, while Lorne is closely following him with 12. In the Constructors' Championship, we have obviously got the two Kick Saubers scoring many, many points, so they also lead the team standings with 72 points. Red Bull then in second with 43, so they've gained 4 positions compared to last week. And Alpine sit third in 30 points, despite the Team Innocentium not having 2 great races. But the second Alpine in both races scored some solid points for them. Ferrari then in 4th place, level pegging with Alpine, while Haas is only 1 point behind those two. Mercedes then in P6 with 25 points, but obviously the biggest percentage of those 25 points go down to Ronan, who finished second this week. Williams then in P7 with 20 points, Aston Martin in P8 with 16, McLaren with 7 in 9th, and at the bottom of the table we've got the V-Carbs with only 1 point. I mean, it's certainly going to be very, very interesting if the two Saubers can continue that trend, and obviously if Nebrestrom or maybe someone else can challenge them in the next few weeks. So we've obviously got a mystery round coming up, and yeah, you never know. Maybe those two will start to tangle anytime soon. But as that's the top 2 divisions basically wrapped up, I think I can hand over to Koi for Division 3.
Thank you, Atom. Yeah, moving to Div 3, we had a reserve driver basically dominate the whole race. In Robe, reserved, he got fastest lap, pole position, and won the race. So I don't think he could have asked for a much better race. Getting pole by just under 7 tenths as well. I mean, Div 2's calling his name. Anyway, we move down to Luke Collins in the McLaren getting second, Freezy getting third in the Racing Bull, Juice fourth in the Aston Martin, Purple Haze fifth in the McLaren, Sky Fee sixth in the Williams, 10th Cannon seventh in the Alpine, Sanity Falls 8th in the Ferrari, Kays Babu 9th in the Mercedes, followed by his teammate Eric 10th in the Mercedes. We have Billy J. Butcher 11th in the Alpine, Tearcod 12th in the Williams, 13th Eagle in the Aston Martin, and then a Red Bull 14th. And then the rest of the pack DNF'd. Moving over to the constructors standing, and in Division 3 so far, McLaren have dominated the way so far. But starting last with Sauber on 0 points, I don't think their TP will be very happy about that so far. They definitely need to up their game. In 9th, we got Ferrari with 8 points. The same thing, 8 points in 2 races. It's not great for them. Racing Bulls in 8th with 23 points. Red Bull in 7th with 27 points. Aston Martin in 6th with 29 points. Haas in 5th with 30 points. Mercedes in 4th with 31 points, joint with Alpine and Williams in 2nd and 3rd with 31 points. And then McLaren with 62 points, which is double the team in 2nd. Moving over to the drivers standing, and believe it or not, Robe apparently leads the championship after getting the race win with 25 points plus pole, what's an extra point, and plus fastest lap. So he's on 27 points, joint with myself and another reserve driver in Luke Collins, all joint on 27 points. Skyfee in 4th with 23 points. Purple Haze in 5th with 22 points. Whipple 6th with 20 points. Kays Babu in 7th with 17 points. Mr. Penguin 8th with 16 points. Joint with Freezy in 9th. And Eric with 14 points. Round out the top 10. I think overall, it's safe to say that Robe completely dominated in the wet, and I would say he's probably going to be having a few team principals looking at potentially giving him a full-time seat. I think that is all for Division 3, so I will pass you over to Fanta and Panda to talk you through Division 4.
Well, I think it's only right, Mr. Championship Leader, you start us off with the ordering positions.
Yeah, so in coming off of the interesting changing conditions in Division 4, we had again, very similar to Division 3, a reserve come in and not necessarily dominate the qualifying, only qualifying second, but definitely being a standout contender in the race and having a few team principals also potentially looking for his name going forward to join their teams. So we have Ransdale in first, Restored Panda in second, myself in third, Man in the Box and Pat Peder, the two Mercedes, fourth and fifth, Brownest Buns with the Alpine in sixth, Monopole Monster for the Ferrari in seventh, BTW with the Haas in eighth, Panda's Aston Martin teammate Sion in ninth, Mike Reed, the only finish in Williams, in 10th, two McLaren's Toxic and a reserve for them, F1 XTYZ, coming 11th and 12th. Stoobs in the Sauber in 13th. Sparky, the other Haas, finishing 14th. My Red Bull teammate Lexus, who had an unfortunate event, which we'll explain when we get to going through the race, with the fastest lap on the end, but coming 15th overall. Golden Wolf and J Street round out the 17 finishers, with Golden Wolf 16th and J Street 17th. It was an interesting race overall. As I said, changing conditions, completely wet monsoon conditions at the beginning of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Later on, changing to intermediates and some sticking out and ended up going straight onto the dries, with a mix-up of 3, 4, sometimes 6 or 7 stop strategies. Then going towards the final, I'd say 7 or 8 laps of the race, changing back to slightly wet conditions, but not terrible. So sticking out on the mediums for the most part. I believe everyone was on the mediums besides the driver that DNF'd. Ransdale, as I said, completely controlled the majority of the race. I think he dropped a few positions off the start, possibly, and then proceeded from there to totally dominate in the dry and continue off into the distance on the wet. The gap was cut down by Panda, but unfortunately wasn't able to catch. How was the race from your side of things?
Well, it was actually 8 tenths there. I just decided to get myself a penalty because, you know, that black and white flag does look quite cool next to your name. So I just thought I needed it. Um, but yeah, it was actually a bit of a comeback drive because, as you can see, qualified seventh. I did not get the conditions right for qualifying myself when it was drying out near the end, and I left too. Well, I went too early for my final run, and then everyone else was improving near the end. And on lap one, I decided to send it around the outside for man in the box at the chicane and had to completely cut it, so lost a few more places. But then, obviously, due to the conditions constantly changing, I think the safety car near the end, it allowed me to get right back up there, mount a bit of pressure onto Ransdale, and I was hoping he would make a mistake, but unfortunately for me, he didn't. But it was an interesting race. I think, unfortunately, for some parts of it, it was a bit boring because there were just such huge gaps between everyone until that safety car. So, thankfully for the safety car, it made it interesting. So, if we go on to the championship standings, we have many surprises here. You know, Fanta leading them. No one coming into this season would assume Fanta would be leading the driver's standings. And after an unfortunate race for Toxic, drops from the lead, but only 1 point behind Fanta, and then myself 2 points behind him in third. Ransdale coming in with a very dominant showing, puts himself in fourth, and like Fanta said, will most likely get signed. Man in the box, one of the more consistent drivers out there right now. Fifth in the championship, moving up a place, and unluckily for J Street, not a great showing from him. Sixth, drops 4 places, and then you've got Lexus, who made a bit of a mistake in the Grand Prix. Monopole Monster, BTW, Brownest Buns, rounding out the top 10. And in the constructors, you've got Red Bull leading it by 10 points, with the Racing Bulls making a jump up there in second with 36, and Aston Martin climbing up because both drivers finishing in the points for the first time. Obviously, it's only been 2 races, but McLaren only 1 point behind them with 35. Ferrari then only 1 point behind them on 34. Mercedes 34 as well. Williams in 7th, Haas in 8th, Alpine 9th, and Sauber in 10th. So, Fanta, I'm just going to start off with you. Who was your surprise? And you can't say the reserve, too easy. Who was your surprise for this race?
Surprise is in where they finished and how high they done or how well they done, should I say, or surprise in how well they didn't
Who you think
perform?
both? Who you think surprised you and where they were able to get up there, and who unfortunately had a bit of a shocker?
I think the two that I'd kind of that are standouts to me for shockers, one not due to his own faults, he was up there until an unfortunate event, which we will be seeing later, is Toxic. I do think he had the pace as proven in the qualifying session to win the race, and even with the changing conditions, I think he felt, and a lot of other people feel, he's a contender for the championship this season, and also could have won, and will probably have the opportunity to win many races going forwards. Same as his full-time teammate Ekwa. I know he wasn't feeling too well for this race, so hopefully he's back on the grid soon. Another one for me as a shock would probably be J Street. He seemed very competitive and very confident coming into this race. Going off of the battles we had at Kota as well last week, I was really looking forward to potentially seeing him towards the top end of the grid. But I don't know if he had an incident or anything off the start. But down in 17th is not where he would have liked to have been, and I feel he had a bit more to come. The shocks, Ransdale would be one, but again, it's a bit too easy. I don't really know if there's anyone that's a standout shock. I'd probably say Peda, I guess, but we all know Peda's quick. It was just how quick would he be? Would he carry it over from last season? And he clearly has still got something in him. I don't know if this is the best of him or whether we've got more to come from him. Brownish Bums is probably another kind of standout or monopole monster. They're kind of your would normally say mid-pack drivers,
Yeah, you got to
but
look at these two
they
here.
were up there.
16th in qualifying, finishing 7th. 19th in qualifying, finishing 8th. Just
Yeah,
managing the race well for
100%.
themselves.
100%. You know, even down to Spion even 15th, coming home 9th. It's a good result. I wouldn't say there's a standout besides Ransdale really, but there was quite a few good performances with the mix of conditions that we faced.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. And I think Sion himself finished a little bit higher on track, but due to I think it was around 6 or 9 seconds of penalties, dropped back. So now we'll give it back to you, Koi, to assess your standouts and who you think should have done better. And I mean, there's only one person who should have done better, really.
You think you're funny, don't you?
I mean, if you
You
get
really think you're
lapped,
funny.
you need to do a bit better, don't you?
Let me just tell you something. Didn't quite get lapped this time. Yeah, definitely. Reserve road as driver of the day. I mean, race win, pole position, fastest lap in the wet and the dry. He looked like he wasn't going to lose. It was close between him and Luke Collins at the front. Especially with Robe claiming that I gave him dirty air, even though my car was ghosted, but who knows? But yeah, I'll definitely give him the the best driver in Hungary, and unfortunately, say myself as the worst driver. I mean, going from a win and then finishing 14th, it's not ideal.
Was there an
especially-
incident? I do have to ask, was there an incident or was it just a case of you don't favour the track with the changing conditions, or talk us through it a little bit more from your perspective?
I'd totally blame my controller for not functioning as it was last week. No, the track's horrible. Wet. It's not what I wanted. But you know, happens. You just gotta go to the next round and come back with points. Really, I guess. I think overall, I don't think there's many incidents really with Div 3, the stewards. Didn't have too much to do there. I believe Juice, I think, got a penalty. Someone decided to overtake me under a safety car. But no, apart from that, the race was pretty clean for a wet race. And yeah, I think there's some surprises. I think, you know, obviously myself finishing quite low as well. I think Hayes Babu, I think he was expected to be a championship contending driver, and we haven't seen much of him this season yet. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do. I think Freezy had a good race as well. I think he's just been signed as well to Racing Bull or whoever. So see what he can do. But I think that's Division 3 really and overall, and pass you back to Atom for Div 2.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I haven't raced in Division 2, so it was a bit hard. I mean, we had a stream at least, so that helps. In the way of a positive surprise, I would probably just go for Neb. I mean, he did all he needed to do. At the end, when it started to rain in Division 2, Ronan was right behind him for the last 5 to 8 laps. He put the pressure on him, only got a 3-second time penalty in the penultimate lap. But he stood that pressure, and Ronan was really pushing hard. So I think Neb did really, really well there. Especially to beat drivers, obviously like Ronan, but also the two Sauber drivers we mentioned are very, very fast. In the ways of a negative surprise, for me, it's between a few drivers I would have expected a bit higher, but I would probably say Thomas in the Red Bull finishing 11th. I mean, he qualified third, so he certainly had the pace. But yeah, I mean, if you're fighting for victory in the first stint and then just continue on the mediums for like 25 laps, you should realize before that that's not the strategy. Even though it's raining at the end, I mean, he was losing so much on those tires. He was from the second safety car onwards, I think he was like half a minute slower than Neb on pure race time. So that's certainly not what you want really, especially compared to your teammate. And yeah, he missed the first round, so we don't know how he would have done there. He now finished 11th, picked up a few points, but I'm sure he'll agree that half a minute off P1 is certainly way too much if you want to fight for a championship. And he was with those people last season, with Guiding Cass, with Raven West, also with Boosted. So yeah, I think he needs to step his game up a bit. Maybe just a bit of a Red Bull thing this week. I mean, he's messed up his strategy a little bit. Lexus, I think, in Division 4 also could have done better. So yeah, I mean, we'll look at it later. The Red Bull are still looking quite handy in the OCC, but I think Koi will look at that after this week and figure out where the team and certain drivers can improve. So yeah, I think that's something Thomas will have to look at. And looking at Division 1, I mean, if it was boring, I'd say Blade is the positive surprise, but is it really a surprise? He got pole in the first race, he got pole in the second race. He lost the first race by 1 millisecond. He now won the second by 26 seconds. So everyone expected him to be there, really. I think last week I said Boosted as positive surprise. I'm not going to go for him again. I would say as a positive surprise, probably Gauzy in fourth, qualified P8. I've not seen too much of him in the race, but I think that just shows what he did. He just drove all the way a very solid race in any weather conditions, didn't lose his cool, and actually was only like 3 seconds off P2 in the end. So I think he can be happy with that. I think he's in the top 5 of the standings now as well, if I'm not fully mistaken. So I think that's something to go from. I mean, his team leader Hayes is like Gauzy is obviously Hayes' brother, so I'm sure she'll be happy that he's doing well too. So we'll have to see how he does in next few races, but that certainly was a good first few rounds, especially Tangra now, knowing that you can perform in any weather condition. Um, Disappointment of this week, I would actually say myself. Qualifying P7, finishing P9, simply based on the fact that just incidents and just things occurred that if they didn't happen, I'm quite certain I would have had a podium there. Just looking on pure race pace. I know I gained on rope, I finished 7th, like in the dry, 8 seconds on pure race time, and even a whole pit stop on both Alpines. And as we saw in the first race, Exotic is certainly forced to be reckoned with. So yeah, I think I could have done better. You probably could also say Tech QB after winning the first round. I mean, he was nowhere this week. He qualified 18th, bottled the last quali run, finished over a minute off blade. I mean, you need the consistency really. It's a Red Bull again, ironically, who messed everything up this week. So maybe that's something we'll have to look out for, that the Red Bulls are not that happy when it comes to strategy in changeable conditions. But yeah, I think it's pretty close between Tekib and me. But looking at how the championship has looked before this weekend, you probably would say Tekib is the better disappointment, because everyone expected him to do well and he didn't. So yeah, that would be my surprises in a positive and negative way.
Lovely stuff. So we'll move on to the overall. How
A good bit.
Jesus Christ. Don't have to half scroll for that, do you? Red Bull still lead the way, and not deservingly. You know, their drivers just luck it out. There's nothing really to them. McLaren,
Wait.
McLaren, even
No,
with
I haven't.
McLaren, even with Toxic in Div 4, unfortunately having uh, unfortunate race, not too far off Red Bull in terms of overall. 38 points isn't much if everyone in all 4 divs just shows up. Williams, though, only 3 points behind them. Aston Martin with, I believe Atom has said most points scored this weekend.
Yeah, I think they've been very close with Red Bull. I think like there were 5 teams who were like within 4 points this weekend. I think it was like Red Bull, Mercedes, Aston Martin, maybe McLaren, not fully sure, and I think Haas. So I think those 5 were really, really close. But I think Aston Martin just about scored the most.
Yeah, so a
I
very
think
good one from them. Yeah.
let's say it. I think McLaren must have been there because we outscored them by 3 points this week. So I think they must have had a good week.
Yeah. And then it's Sauber in 5th, Mercedes in 6th, Ferrari in 7th, Alpine 8th, Haas in 9th. And the Racing Bulls in 10th, 20 points off of Haas alone, and then 106 off of Red Bull. So after 2 rounds, that's not great for the Racing Bulls. I'm not too sure who their team owner
Jobber.
is. Jobber, he might need to be looking at something and getting some plans ready for that transfer period, because it is not looking great so far for them already.
I mean, they got 25 points off their Division 4 reserve as well.
Oh, yeah, so even a reserve coming into their team and helping them like that, That's not great for them. We have got some clips. So, hello. Why won't you let me exit? There we go. We're gonna start with the infamous. I don't care. I don't care. Infamous man himself, right here. FG Atom.
Yeah, look at my setup, it's great.
I think that deserves a round of applause, Koi, for that incredible driving from Atom there.
Did you get any damage from that? I just have to ask.
I got no damage at all.
How have you managed to achieve that? No damage. Car
I
either
mean,
side of you, pointing
if you
like
look
an
at
arrow.
if you looked at the telemetry, as soon as I was squeezed in like that sandwich, I realized I'm not gonna get out of it. It just went off the throttle. I was like,
He
I'm just gonna
just
wait
dragged
until they
along.
ghost, and they just didn't ghost.
So you were just
Yeah,
sitting
That
there
is
stuck there
amazing.
in a four-person crash because I've just noticed that Sauber gets collected right at the
yeah.
end
I
of
mean,
it
that
as well.
Sauber saw the gap around the outside. That
Yeah,
certainly was there.
yeah. Well, that's
But
so that was obviously your incident that then led you to not having a great race, but you climbed back up there because I think what was it? It was
yeah,
18th right at the end.
yeah, it was that. And
19th.
then
Yeah.
when I pitted for the from the Inters to the Slicks, I went into the pit lane. I had a reserve teammate, FG Shenogradsky, and he went into the pit lane, and we had a good window, like, so I would have not lost much time. And when he was in the pit box, basically, he manually retired from the session. So the pit crew basically released him, changed my tires. I went out into the actual lane, and then suddenly, because his car retired, his ghosted car just was standing still in the middle of the lane, and every car behind him, including me, just stopped for like a good 5 seconds, just because the game's, you can wait now. There's caution, and yeah, it cost me another 5 seconds. So yeah, that was a great first wet weather stint.
Great stuff, really. And we got the first one from Boosted. It's round the
Dislocation.
outside of the goated
Any
team
boys?
owner. That's all I've got.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't know about that.
No, just
Man.
boys. Just boys in general.
It's just brilliant.
No, I haven't.
He'll never be back.
Haven't heard from him.
Once you go gay,
Okay, keep an eye
don't
on that
go
gap
back.
ahead, please.
That's the same.
3.0 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not too sure though. I think you might need to check your drivers. That says outside. I believe he took the inside line, but you know that was a pretty decent move anyway.
I mean, the move was initiated around the outside, to be fair to him. It just fed into the inside for the next few turns.
That was a hell of a move, to be fair,
that
because
was
I don't know how
commitment.
it was in Div 4. That part of the track is so difficult in a wet because it's not flat at all. So
You're feathering the
that's
throttle, and if
good,
you
to be fair.
touch any of those curbs in the wet, you're spinning.
I think man in the
Mm.
box found out about one of the curbs on the left,
Got
going through that
stuck on it.
first right-hander he took. He got stuck on it and ended up going off the track. I think he lost 3 or 4 positions off of it. So, yeah, to attempt the move round there's commitment in itself, and to pull it off, that was quite a good move, to be honest.
Yeah, and then we've got Partick. He entered this into Overtake of the Week. It's a 1.5-minute clip, so I don't really know where to start from, actually.
0 seconds. You're pulling out a second a lap on the car behind. Really good stuff.
Yeah, well, I think that was the overtake, and that is some brave side-by-side racing in them
Side by
conditions.
side in them conditions for half the lap. That was quite impressive. That
Yeah, if Jobber saw that, he would say on the usually flattered left hand, they left the track and gained an advantage.
I was thinking that as well. I'm not too sure that wasn't a warning, but
But I don't think he had any space left he could have used. That's a good move, to be fair.
no,
it's a
To
great
get
move
it's just trusting
by
both of
yeah.
them for each other, isn't it? Really.
It was great side by side action. You know, as you said, trusting both drivers. They gave space where possible. Obviously, the fast left-hander doesn't actually push you out to the right. So, for both of them to make it clean through half the lap and then to finish to move off into the chicane in them conditions is quite impressive.
Yeah, I mean it's nice for him, you know. He sadly can't race Fanta, so he just passes the orange juice instead. So that's nice for him.
Yeah. Now we've got one from the GOAT of GRL, Sion.
The Division 7, former Division 7 champ.
Okay, clear.
Oh my gosh.
Oh. Well, that's a pretty
That is a
decent
That's
safety car
surprisingly
restart.
great move. Yeah, that was amazing.
As you can see,
That's why he
myself
tested the wets at
had
Kota.
an absolutely
Yeah, see,
shocking restart. Look at where am
as
I
we said
going?
last episode, he knew he was preparing for something we were not ready for, and this is proving it. Unfortunately, he didn't get the finish in that position due to penalties, and I believe he got a penalty after the stewarding decisions
No,
as well.
no.
Or did he not get one in the? No, he didn't.
How many
Um,
cars did he pass? 4, 5?
A 5.
Five,
Yeah,
I think.
one. There's me. Toxic.
Oh, it's
Four.
Lexus
Four.
on the softs.
Oh,
So that
the
one.
soft.
We don't talk about Lexus.
Are you sure it's
What is
4?
it doing, bro?
It's
Yeah, it's
5.
4.
Oh no,
Maths.
maths. Shut up.
Usually with your P5, you can only pass 4 cars ahead of you.
There's
to
a
be
Yeah,
fair.
medical one. There's Casper
we
the
don't
Ghost
talk
Rider.
about Lexus. It seems that the Red Bulls this week seem to have a performing driver and a underperforming driver in every division this week.
In Division 3?
Division 3, where did Koi was obviously last.
Yes.
I don't know.
Was he the performing driver?
Yeah.
I mean, we've only had one driver, you know, in that race.
He
So
exactly.
He did it both.
He did
I'll take
both.
both. Take both.
And I think we've got the clip that brought the most entertainment to the Discord for the following days after the race, and it comes from a man himself. And for certain reasons, there will be no audio on this one. I can see if I can time it actually.
No.
Yeah. Well, that brought a lot of entertainment to people because, as you can see, the superb correction of a slide, full throttle, still turning left, doesn't stop turning left. It's just incredible driving and oh, just a great guy, great driving. Pled his innocence to the death. And I mean, Atom, yourself, what do you think of this incredible clip?
I mean, there's one thing I have to mention to be before we saw he was already losing a couple of times, then you could say a ridiculously dangerous rejoin onto the circuit. That was not investigated. But no, in general, I mean, there was some arguing going on, especially from Andrew's side, obviously saying that this was a normal crash, just lost the rear. I mean, all the stewards agreed that that was not the case. That was just intentionally crashing really, and basically a race fixing almost. GRL at least now got the first crash gate scandal. Yeah, I mean, Andrew's given up his seat. He's obviously received a race ban for good measure as well. But I mean, I think there's not really any way you can defend it. But yeah, I mean, we said last week he had a good 5th place at Kota, but he's already lost his nerves basically at round 2, which has ruined his championship. But we know now that Ransdal, the winner of that Hungary race, will take his spot. So
So quite a
I
decent
think that
replacement. So
yeah, I mean it's basically an upgrade. I think that will be interesting. So yeah, we'll have to see. That was Ransdal's first ever GRL race as well. So I think he'll look forward to it. Some people in this chat will not, because that just adds competition.
no,
Love a bit of competition.
calm with that. I was quite close with him. Obviously, didn't actually battle him, but by what he was doing with other people, he seems like a clean and fair guy. So looking forward to the rest of the season. And I think to round it out, because we've been going for 47 minutes now, I just want to get each of your opinions on which track you'd prefer for Monday out of the 3, obviously being Baku, Abu Dhabi, and the other one,
Brazil.
Brazil. So we'll start with you, Fanta. Which one are you wanting out of them 3?
I don't particularly like street circuits, but again, I've done absolutely no practice for any of the tracks. So I have no idea how I'll perform around any of them. I could absolutely hate Brazil and love Baku to pieces. So honestly, over the next few days, it's going to be a lot of trial and error and preparing for the race on Monday. Seeing if I can keep that kind of consistency going. I look at it on 2 perspectives. Brazil and Abu Dhabi are probably the easier of the 2. Brazil would probably be the track I'd be most favourable for. But then I look at it and go, Baku as an example, there's not only a lot of opportunities, for instance, for myself, but also for other people in the division. So it might be an opportunity to pick up another podium or continue potentially to just stay in the top 5 and keep within that fight for the championship going forward.
Yeah, got to agree with you there. I'll just say my piece. I think Baku is my favoured one because I did a few laps on each of them a couple days ago and I've not touched them since. But Baku was the one where I was showing a little bit more pace on it compared to the only person I have got as a friend in Div 4, Mr. Peter. So I'd prefer that one.
Lord.
Like you dare disrespect Peter. He is a lord. It's so tight. You got to be smart and respectfully to the fellow drivers in Div 4. Not many of them are. So I would be expecting a lot of safety cars. So I'd honestly say Baku and just hope to keep it clean. Koi, which one are you? You're not racing. Which one would have you have wanted if you weren't going on holiday?
Either Brazil or Baku. Personally, I don't really like Abu Dhabi. Never really liked it for any F1 game. I think last year Baku was like my favorite track, and Brazil. So that's yeah, I'd definitely choose either Baku or Brazil if I was racing, but I'll leave it over to whoever reserves in my seat.
Yep, fair enough. And finally, the Führer of GRL. Which one are you wanting?
Well, if you asked me this like 6 months ago and we were back on F123, I would have probably said Abu Dhabi, great track, always was good at it. Well, not now. I can't get to grips with whatever they've done to Pad and Abu Dhabi. That combination just doesn't work for me anymore. I think I'm actually slower than at Baku, and then it's really between Brazil and Baku. I did one league race at Baku this game. I won at Brazil. The Baku one actually with no practice, and I think Baku would probably make for the most entertaining race, just because it's a street circuit, mistakes will happen, people will collide. But looking at it that way, that we've got Australia and Canada coming up, I think Brazil would be a sensible choice for the wheel of names. um, to like slowly bring us into the more difficult tracks, because otherwise it's literally Baku, Australia, Canada, back to back to back, and then even maybe Monaco after, which would be a bit stressful.
That'd be my
So I
breaking point.
think, yeah, I think Brazil. It's all in every GRL season. Brazil actually has been the title decider, the season finale. So we obviously will lose that statistic, but I think Brazil generally always makes great races, at least in Division 1, and there's always a chance of some rain coming down too. So I think people would certainly say Brazil is a good choice. But yeah, as I said, Baku would certainly spice things up, and we haven't raced it for quite some time, so we'll find out. But my pick would be Sao Paulo.
Very nice. And that will be it for episode 2 of this season's podcasts. And do not forget, boys, Rogue Energy. Great stuff. Use our code. Love you all. Have fun at either Brazil, Baku, or Abu Dhabi.